think the screen is gone. I'll go ahead and start the meeting. Today is Wednesday, May 13th, 2020, and this is the Audit Committee meeting. And I'll go ahead and start the meeting. Maybe we should go ahead and take attendance really quick, just to make sure we have a record of everybody who's here. Stephanie Maddox, Allison Wright, Ovita Thornton, I believe you're the call-in user. Russell Edwards is here. Patrick Davenport, you're here, correct?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, this is Melissa Link. I see Blaine Williams has signed in. Is there anybody else out there who's signed into the meeting?
This is Glenn Coleman, Public Utilities.
Deborah, and who else?
Glenn Coleman, Public Utilities.
Okay, hey Glenn. Okay.
Josh Edwards is on as well.
Okay. All right, well, we'll go ahead and entertain a motion to approve the minutes for the last meeting. Does anybody want to move?
I so moved.
I would like to motion to reconsider.
Reconsider the minutes?
Yes, there's one correction, and maybe it's the wrong motion to be using, but give me a second as I pull it up. We had some issues with the flow charts, and Madam Chair, correct me if I'm correct, if we approve these minutes, we're going to approve that we accepted the flow charts. I think there was some confusion with the flow charts from the last meeting, so I would like to do a motion to reconsider.
To reconsider the minutes?
Yes.
I'm not really sure what you're saying. Like you want to edit the minutes? You want to change?
Amend the minutes.
Okay. And what part of the minutes do you want to amend? What?
I like to amend the flow chart process. Commissioner Davenport motion to update the audit process flow charts.
Okay. So there's a correction in there that you want to insert? What is the correction?
Didn't we have a confusion of the flow charts?
I think there was some confusion, and that's why we sent it back to committee. We wanted a more clear explanation of what the flow chart means. So that's why we're discussing it again, and it's on this agenda.
I don't think it's an amendment of the minutes, because that's actually what happened.
Yeah, I don't think we need to amend the minutes.
So.
Okay.
Yeah, so we will come back to the discussion of the flow chart. Yeah. So that is what happened at that particular meeting. So that passes, and then we come back and we revisit the flow chart.
Yeah, I don't think that there's a need to amend the minutes because we did vote at the mayor and commission meeting to send it back.
Okay, thank you.
It's on this agenda, so that's what we'll be discussing today.
Okay, well, thank you so much.
Well, my motion is still on the table to accept the minutes.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right, let's go ahead and get an update from the Office of Operational Analysis about the ongoing audits, the status report.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Okay. The end of medical services contract review has been completed. The Water Business Office report has been completed. The fleet management program audit is anticipated to be completed by the end of June, early May, end of June. And the animal services audit anticipated completion month would be July.
So we can't hear you. You got muted.
Sorry, I muted myself because there's a lot of outside noise. Everybody try and mute yourself if you're not talking so it doesn't disrupt the speaker. But yeah, then you have to remember to unmute yourself. I just wanted to ask Stephanie and her staff to enlighten us to any challenges they're having with some of these audits in light of the COVID crisis and the inability to do some in-person interviews. Can you talk to us a little bit about that, Stephanie?
Sure. Well, specifically with the animal services audit, we were going through the audit pretty smoothly, and as soon as we were sheltering in place, we stopped abruptly, and it was at a perfect time where we had just completed all of the staff interviews, and we were just starting to receive all of the requests for documents that we had sent out earlier in the month. So it's a very clean break for us, and we're just in a holding place right now until we're able to go back to start interviewing in the field and do observations. And the next phase would be to actually interview our stakeholders. But I wanted to pose an idea to you all, and I got this idea from Commissioner Thornton, who called this the COVID plan. And I thought about breaking the report up into two different categories. The category from the perspective of staff, and another report later after we get back into the field and have an opportunity to interview stakeholders and conduct observations and also benchmarking. I mean, we're at a good spot because we've actually met with everybody that works for animal services, and we've received a lot of documentation that we've been going through. So it's something to consider. Without doing that, we really don't have that much more to do without interviews. I mean, we have tons of data to go through, but I just wanted to throw that idea out there to you all.
Does anyone have any ideas about that? Would you like to see a two-part audit of the animal services so that we can go ahead and get some idea of the issues there, and then the office would go back and get information from the volunteers?
My idea, or it was really Stephanie's, about the two-tier. I think earmarking it as a COVID plan, it doesn't change the goals or objectives, but it is helpful in the future and documentation why this audit was delayed. You know, history, we'll have a record in for always, but if anybody looks, they will know that this change, or can kind of assume that in this change, it was because of the pandemic, not from anything else. So that's the only difference, I think, is to be able to kind of pull that out and explaining it without explaining it. But nothing changes with how we get that information.
Hey, y'all, it's Josh. Just one thing I would add to help with this conversation. We have been working with our stakeholders that helped with the strategic plan, and we've been meeting with them via WebEx. So our new animal services director has been convening the stakeholders. So they might be open, Stephanie, to WebEx as well, interviews. Not sure if that would work for you or not, but they have been using it, and they've been helping think about ordinances and other projects we're working on through that strategic plan.
And knowing that, Josh, is even more meaningful because we're doing business differently now. So I think that fits right into what Stephanie is trying to get accomplished and what we're trying to get accomplished. I just put the COVID plan on because this is different, and history will be written somewhere, and we should be able to, somebody could look at that and understand what happened with this audit.
I kind of have some thoughts on it, on the idea of going ahead and getting some kind of report on at least the assessment of the staff, you know, based on the staff interviews, because the office has been reorganized, and you know, I think maybe that report could be helpful to the office as they really get established. Staff might have some input on that, on if they think, you know, if we go ahead and ask for a two-part document to kind of get something in hand earlier rather than later, would it be helpful in you know, this initial kind of resetting up of the department? the office, I guess it is now. It's an
Mhm.
office. It's its own office. Does staff have any input on that?
Well, from the manager's office, I would just say, any report that's put out, we like the opportunity to respond to.
Yeah, I mean, it would go through the same process, I believe, the same exact process.
That's correct.
Does anybody else on the committee have any input on that?
I can barely hear Auditor Maddox, so if somebody else could just repeat what we're talking about. I didn't catch much of her presentation. I don't know if it's because of the call-in signal or what. Sorry.
So
I apologize.
can you hear her now? Do you want to repeat, Stephanie?
I am having some IT issues, and I apologize, Commissioner Edwards. So with the Animal Services Department, we are actually in a great place where it's a clean break between one major responsibility and the next major responsibility. We had just completed all of our staff interviews and submitted all of our document requests to various departments for information prior to sheltering in place. So two things have happened. We've completed all of our staff, we've met with the staff, and we are still receiving documentation and filing those away and reviewing those documents, but we can't interview anybody else. So our next phase was supposed to be to begin setting up interviews with stakeholders. I threw out there the proposition to actually split up the report into 2 chapters. The first chapter would be the perspective from the staff and internally, and then after the sheltering in place is over, then going back out and then finishing up with our stakeholder interviews as well as our observations and anything else that would go into that in that category.
Why not just do the interviews with WebEx? I'm not sure when the shelter in place will be over.
Well, we just learned about that today from Assistant Manager Josh, so that's a great idea. We hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, I would encourage just to use WebEx because we don't know when the pandemic will subside to the degree where the risk of an in-person interview would be justified.
Okay.
So,
I mean, our whole county is using WebEx, correct?
yeah.
I don't know if that's rhetorical, but I know that the Mayor and Commission is using WebEx. We're currently using WebEx to pass policies for this committee. So to me, WebEx seems like it could be appropriate for interviews.
I do wonder if when you're dealing with stakeholders, people who have volunteered at the animal shelter over the years, they may not be as technologically proficient. I mean, we've got IT folks to help us. They may not have the equipment. So I do wonder if that would...
A phone call or just a phone call, right? A phone interview.
Yeah, I mean, I just wonder if a phone interview is as effective. But I mean, I think what we should discuss is, if there are any advantages or disadvantages to a 2-part report. We were to...
I think we could just conduct interviews using technology and continue on the established report protocol. I don't think we should enter a discussion about restructuring the entire report processes when the technology exists to continue conducting interviews.
Does anybody else have any input on that?
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Edwards. It seems kind of wonky and confusing to break it, to break it apart and do a 2-parter.
I don't have a strong feeling one way or the other. I think that I could go either way. I do like Stephanie's idea initially until I found out about the recommendation against Assistant County Manager Josh, but I don't have a strong, this is not one of the things I'm going to fall on the sword about. The whole idea and the whole intent and what we seem to struggle with on this committee is getting to an end goal. And so I don't have no, this is not one I'm going to fall on the hill about, but whatever we do, whatever best gets us to a point of closure with the animal shelter, I'm good with. This has been dragging on a minute, and it's easy for us to say how to do it if we're not doing it. But I'm not going to fall on the sword on this.
Allison, do you have any input on this? Did you drop off? Okay.
Sorry, now can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. So I think as you were describing the breaking it apart, it appears to me that the staff part that's been done would need feedback from the stakeholders. It seems to me like the work that happens between the two groups are relevant to each other, and that having it come forward together is going to give us a better picture of what's going on. And I can imagine that the stakeholders might not want to be in a meeting together if they have things to share that would the one-on-one from a phone call or a Office of Operational Analysis with just one stakeholder group. You see what I mean? So that they can talk freely about the input that they want to give. But I think that what Russell mentioned with Josh's insights about how they're working right now with the stakeholders dialed in with the technology, and if somebody can't, the phone, I think if we move forward with that, and if next month, if it turns out to where it's not working, we can get an update then.
Okay.
I appreciate the suggestion. I didn't know that departments were using WebEx for outside meetings, but it's certainly worth a try, and we'll try that.
And we'll help support you with IT any way you need, Stephanie. You just let me know.
Okay, thank you so much, Josh.
Okay, does anybody want to pose a motion that we just, I mean, I guess maybe we don't have to since nothing's really changing. You're just going to move ahead with animal services through the regular process.
Correct.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now we want to discuss the risk assessment timeline. I did some calculating, and you know, I really do want to get this risk assessment out there to the departments because, first of all, it needs to be voted on by the mayor and commission in order to give the go-ahead to send it out to the departments. The departments need at least 2 weeks to respond. The Office of Operational Analysis needs at least a couple weeks to crunch the data. And then this committee needs to meet again to take a look at the results of that assessment and to determine a work plan. At this point, if we do approve to send this out at this meeting and it gets approved at our June 2nd Mayor and Commission meeting, it's September before we even sit down to, before the Mayor and Commission would have an opportunity to even approve such a work plan. So I just don't think, I mean, that's 4 months from now. You know, we delay another month and it'll be October. It's likely we may not have, there's probably not going to be a mayor and commission voting meeting in July. So that could delay it even more. I just think it's crucial that we approve and give the go ahead to get this risk assessment out there so we can get moving on a work plan, because this office has wrapped up several audits, and you know, a couple more are just about to be wrapped up, and there'll be some lag time there while the risk assessment is out there being attended to by the departments. You know, I do want to hear from Stephanie and her staff about their thoughts about getting this risk assessment out and a timeline for that. So, Stephanie, if you have any to say about that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to ask Jill to speak on the risk assessment. She put together this timeline that you see here on the screen because we wanted to give you an idea of the major tasks that need to be completed as part of the process. The dates they're not hard and fast dates, but we wanted to kind of give you an idea of time frame. And also Jill had a follow-up conversation recently with the software vendor, and there's just some good information to share there as well. Jill, do you mind filling us in?
Not a problem. The risk assessment tool, I went on the excessive side so you guys could see that if it's ready to be deployed, like I mentioned last time. So we could potentially even send it out, by May 25th. But if you give the departments at least 3 weeks to respond, we could then begin processing the data. Now, I went on the extension of 3 weeks or more to process data only because it depends on how soon the departments get the information back. Obviously, if they get it back sooner to us, we can process it as it comes in, and that timeline could actually shrink. But if departments need a little bit of extra time to get things done, that could also extend it. So we wanted to make sure that there was a wide enough window in there. And then I put in that we would have the ability for you guys to see the results once they were done. If we gave them to you by the 20th of July at the latest, it would give you guys an opportunity to look at all the results and to analyze it before the next audit committee meeting, because that would be in August. I looked it up, it would be August 12th, and give you guys an opportunity to discuss them at that time and to determine what work plan you wanted to put forth. So I think if we could deploy it, I agree, the sooner the better, and we could get some results starting to come back in. And for the software, like Stephanie was mentioning, I did speak with the vendor, and they advised me for the Teammate Plus software, if we can get the funds to them by the 29th of May, so in just a couple of weeks, if we can get them the initial funds, which would be $13,500 to sign the contract with them, then we can go ahead and get that locked-in rate, which was lower than the $14,175 that they had quoted to us previously. And they would work with us, starting with our fiscal year budget for the next year, the funds as far as paying for training and that type of expense would come out of the fiscal year 21 budget.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions or concerns about this kind of timeline?
May I add one extra detail?
Sure.
Madam Chair, the Overview Commission has also put together a risk assessment tool. It's not as extensive as the one that we have, but the questions are very similar, just not as many. And so they are meeting tomorrow night and voting on when they are going to send theirs out. And they are also equally motivated to go ahead and get started. And so I don't know when that will be, but I know that they're motivated to get that done within the month, to send it out to departments within the month.
So are there a lot of the same questions on their risk assessment tool?
They definitely overlap, in that there would be some benefits if departments would receive them at the same time. Instead of having to look up the information twice, there is some overlap for sure.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Hey, Melissa?
Yeah?
This sounds like a perfect opportunity for us to just piggyback theirs.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But don't we have to go before the mayor and commission for our approval for the go-ahead?
We would, and it seems to me like that if we got a copy of what they decided, just to let you know, I thought we were going to talk about the Overview Committee in the agenda, so I'm glad it came up, because it seems to me that the Overview Committee and its relevance has time and focus of both the Office of Operational Analysis and each department. So if we can piggyback on something that's already happening, get a copy of what theirs is, maybe we can get the mayor and commission to approve that we use that.
We've already had our risk assessment tool approved by the mayor and commission.
I know, but what if this tool can allow us to move ahead with one that's going to be already done? It's just an idea.
I mean, I think what Stephanie and Jill are saying is that the Overview Commission came up with their own set of questions, and many of them do overlap with the risk assessment tool that we have that's been approved by the mayor and commission that we're beholden to. And actually, for the audit office purposes, the risk assessment tool that has been approved is a little more extensive.
Okay, all right. I might have misunderstood. I thought that we were trying to, you know, piggyback on on one wave, and you're saying theirs is a small survey, ours is a longer one. I'm just want to make
it makes sense that the timing is the same because department heads get these things both together, and a lot of the questions are the same or similar, and they can, like Stephanie said, they don't have to look information up twice. They can fill them both out at once. But they're for different purposes.
That's correct.
Yeah, I think but I think that, that just reiterates the necessity that we go ahead and give the go ahead and ask the Office of Operational Analysis to draft an agenda item to go through this cycle and be voted on June 2nd to give the go ahead to have that risk assessment tool sent out to all departments so we can get on a schedule and get a work plan, in the early fall, have them, work plan in the fall, because we're looking at, an empty slate of audits within the next month or so.
Madam Chair, I just want to reiterate from last month, my concerns last month, and I want to make sure they're clear this month. One of my concerns were the current audits that were outstanding. I think we've got a good report on that. I'm good with that. My other concern was having enough help to get these out and processed. I think we can get them out. I want to make sure, though, that you are not, or anyone is not, implying a timeline right now, because we still have not heard about the software or whether this is going to be done manually, which will make a huge difference. So I support getting the questions out. So I don't know if this is a two-part question or you have a timeline in your head or somebody else's head on what that looks like as a timeline of, because it does make a difference. And again, I'm not trying to rush stuff, but I'd rather do it right. But I will support getting it out. But I do want to take in consideration if this is going to be based on the software that we've been waiting for, or is this going to be done manually?
Stephanie, can you address that and your staffing needs?
Well, if you recall, I think we started last November with an email thread requesting a consideration for a transfer from contingency sometime this year when we started to do research for the automated software. What we've discovered is, we do a manual process. We type in everything, we key in everything, we format all of our documents and all of our reports. It is very time consuming. And we've been through simulations and seen automated software where it's very quick. And a great analogy would be the difference between plowing a field with a mule versus a tractor. I know it may be a little crude, but it feels like that after sitting down for 10 or 12 hours, just hand keying in information by hand.
I can't hear, but I can't hear anything of what you're saying. I don't know if we need technology to help, but I can't hear anything of what the auditor is saying. I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
Stephanie, do you think maybe you could call Commissioner Edwards and he could listen to your audio through his phone? Because I can hear you just fine. Is anyone else having trouble with the audio?
It's weak. It sounds like it's distant to me.
I apologize, you guys.
Do you have headphones? Do you have a headphone speaker? Maybe that would help. I don't know.
No, it must be something today because it was like earlier today too. But I have another phone I can call in from. I'll use my other phone. If you guys want to just hang tight, I'll call right back.
Okay.
Okay. Hold. We're gonna hang tight for a second.
Okay.
I'm gonna take.
You fill in about the benefit of the automation, and I'll just call in with the other line.
Well, I'm gonna take a break.
Are you back in, Stephanie?
Hello, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, actually, that's a lot clearer. That worked.
Commissioner Edwards, can you hear me?
Yes.
I apologize, everybody. Sorry for the delay.
Okay. So where were we?
I think I was just explaining an analogy of how difficult the difference between manually hand keying in your work product versus actually using a dashboard and a software program. It's exponentially faster, and it's truly what our colleagues are using in the field. It would help us stay organized and actually not have to recreate everything from scratch with every single audit, which is what we do right now. Jill, do you have anything to add?
I think it's got so many different functions to it, where the risk assessment tool is also built into it, where right now, like I said, we're having to manually bring in the results and do them by hand. Even if we get the software in this same time frame, to answer kind of Commissioner Thornton's concern, is that I'm not sure that the software would be used for this time around with the risk assessment tool, because once we've deployed it through SurveyMonkey, those results are going to go right into the software, whereas in the future, we can deploy the surveys using the software, and those results automatically get fed back into the results, into the computer system. So right now, we would have to enter them by hand either way, whether we use the teammate or we use regular Excel to analyze the data.
I have a question for Jill. I know last month you were very clear about how much of this we can do. Since some things have been closed, some of the past audits, and we have a plan for the animal shelter audit, are you still having the same concern you had last year? And I do know, I think there's an intern working with you now. So we got some new help, and we got some stuff closed out. If we've still got to do things manually, are we in a good, are we at a good place to get these out and begin the process, whatever that is?
Yes. I believe so. As long as we've got an intern or two coming in, we can definitely put in. And even right now, I feel comfortable where we're at, reviewing all the information and the data we've received and documents request information that we've received for animal. I think we're on a good time path right now, and I think that it would be a good time to deploy it.
And so all of the concerns I had last month, they're 90% cleared up.
I think we're in a good place.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Okay, does anybody want to propose a motion that we ask the mayor and commission to give the go-ahead to deploy the risk assessment tool? Does anybody want to propose that motion? I'll propose it.
Well, I still concur with our vote from last month that was to wait until the audits move forward, but that's my personal opinion. Yeah.
Does anybody want to second the motion that we move forward with this risk assessment? Because if we don't move forward with it now, we're not going to see a work plan probably till November, which means this office won't have much to do. That doesn't look good. So no one wants to give the go-ahead to this risk assessment. Is anyone else out there? Does anybody want to respond at all?
I did already.
I mean, I guess I would say, you know, it seems like we're still working through issues about purchasing software to collect results, if I heard correctly. And I guess I'd also like to, I mean, I want to see the risk assessment tool before we send it forward for mayor and commission approval. I mean, it'd be nice if it was in the agenda report or something. I could just set my eyes on it before we send it forward.
We helped develop that tool. We approved it through the mayor and commission. It's been approved by the mayor and commission. Work plan cannot be developed until that risk assessment tool is deployed.
So why is this back?
Future assignments to this office are dependent upon that risk assessment tool being deployed, and it will be, you know, probably at least 2 or 3 months from the deployment to us actually presenting.
Yeah, I get that. I was listening during the presentation. I saw the timeline. I understand the timing, but I'm interested in, the mayor and commission already voted to approve this assessment tool. Why is it back in the committee for us to vote to deploy it, for the mayor and commission to again vote to deploy it? I'm just a little unclear, that's all.
Well, the November 2019 vote was the strategy of us not picking certain departments to do it, but that everyone would be done so we'd have the numbers.
Okay.
But it didn't authorize the manager and staff to spend time doing it. That's a second step. That would be this step. This step is telling the agenda report would be, in my mind, along the lines of saying, yes, we want staff to work on this now.
Okay, but the November vote, we approved the actual risk assessment tool.
It's within that document, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Well, then my only concern then is about, you know, how are we collecting the data? Is it going to be hand inputted? Do we need to approve the software purchasing? Where are we there? Are we going to deploy a tool without knowing how we're going to collect the data? I'm just a little unclear there.
I think that
maybe I might have confused you, because according to Jill now, the software is would not be used this round. It would be manual. Is that right, Jill?
That's correct.
What was that?
That's correct.
So the software now is not an issue.
You want to second my motion?
I don't want to, but I will, because I still think there's some things. But if we can do this, wait, let me say this. Let me say this. If we can do this and start it, and we find out that we're going to get a hiccup, we need to be able to address it. I don't want to put the audit department in any jeopardy. So based on that, and the way things keep coming back, I'm sure if there is a hiccup, it will come back. So I will second it, Melissa. I will second it.
Okay.
Now let me ask a parliamentary procedure, Russell. Can Melissa, as the chair, make the motion, or does it matter?
Well, to my knowledge, Chair Link, you would break a tie. I mean, that's when you vote. You break ties. You set the agenda and you break ties. But, you know, look, I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, so I made the motion that we send this forward for the mayor and commission to consider deploying this questionnaire. I'm fine with that.
And I'm seconding, and I'm fine with it also.
Okay.
The questionnaire has already been approved, so
This is
software is off the table. It's going to be manually inputted, so I'm fine. Let's move on.
okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're going to get this risk assessment out, and that'll put us in a good place to take the next steps towards getting a new work plan.
Melissa, that's going to be in the next mayor and commission voting cycle.
Yes, that's
to
why
make sure everybody is on board with this idea.
Yes, well, from what I understand, by having these meetings the second week of the month, that gives the office time to submit an agenda report, so it will appear on our agenda. Is that correct?
Well, I'm fine with that. And I'm agreeing with Commissioner Edwards. Let's move forward.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like, it feels obstructive if this committee is not giving us go-aheads, because it puts the office, months and months out before they have a new work plan.
Melissa, I wasn't trying to argue. I was just clarifying what the motion is, moving this into the agenda cycle for the whole group to know what's happening.
Yes.
That was it. This ain't a justification, but we're good. We're good.
Let's move on.
I just want to clarify with Stephanie that this is what would appear on the June 2nd agenda. It would appear in our agenda setting meeting, our upcoming agenda setting meeting, and in the June 2nd for a vote.
I will give Jean a call first thing in the morning. We already have it prepared, and I'll just she mentioned today that there may be some late submissions, and I will see if she would entertain ours. It's already prepared though, so I'll call her first thing in the morning and let the committee know for sure.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right.
What's next?
Sorry.
I muted myself. Now we want to take a look at these process documents. So if everybody can pull your documents up, so we can take a look at them and have them in front of us so we understand what's going on here.
Madam Chair, may I ask for some support from Manager Williams? I just want to make sure that I am not confused and we're on the same page, and what I have highlighted is what he's concerned with. I have two different versions for the elected officials and for departments, but I just wanted to talk to it together while we're on the call.
That's a good idea.
So Manager Williams, you see for the one that's showing on the screen right here, I wanted to just make sure that on this one that's highlighted, the spots that's highlighted, you want to indicate that the manager's office gets an opportunity to respond.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. And are you okay with me adding the department/manager's office?
That's fine.
Okay.
What we'll do is we will, rather than give you two different responses, we will work with the department and it will come from us. But as noted in previous audits, the manager's response is what's noted in the report, and it's just an issue of accountability. But that reads well. Thank you, Auditor Maddox.
Absolutely. So I have another option to share with you. So this one that's on the screen is, there are no changes to this one. This is for elected officials. It's the current one that's already in place. So this is a new one that actually, the only change on here is the one that we just discussed that Manager Williams is in agreement with, but there also is the one to the left. The box says that in addition to the manager's office and the department getting a draft report, this now reads the audit committee will also receive the draft report. Now, a few years ago, the audit committee decided they didn't want to receive the draft report and would wait until it was finalized with all of the responses and folded into the report. So I prepared both. Not sure how you would feel, and I can pull either one out. Are there any strong opinions about either one?
My only opinion, I've spoken to the manager and Commissioner Link and Commissioner Edwards. I think, and I think I spoke to Commissioner Wright. I do think that the committee should also get the report, but we would not make a recommendation for the full commission or respond without the response coming from the manager's office or the department, whoever sends us the report. So I do think that the committee should also get that report on the front end.
I think it enhances accountability and transparency, and it keeps the committee in the loop, so we constantly know, what stage the audit is at. So yeah, I think this is a good addition to this process.
Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Davenport. Commissioner Thorne, you also talked to me as well. So what brought about this process change? Can you give us all, just refresh my memory of what's going on and why we need to change?
Well, first of all, I think that, and this is not a matter of change. I think that it should have been done this way all along. We are the committee, and even for those of us who do not want to look at it, you don't have to look at it. I would personally like to see the raw document and wait to get the response back from the manager's office. So this is not, I think it should have been done this way all along. I don't know how it ever changed before. So it's nothing eerie. We're just working on the line on the lines of transparency. That's it. It's nothing secret going on.
I guess I'm just not clear why this other proposal wasn't included in our agenda. I just saw the other one and was prepared to vote on that, and now there's new information here that I'm having to think about. It's frustrating.
Well, this has kind of come about through conversations and clarifications on the the process that was brought forward last time. And we sent it back to this committee so we could have that further discussion. And I asked the auditor to bring this up for further discussion because in my personally looking at this process closer, I felt like there needed to be that additional layer of accountability and the committee, being that we're elected officials representing the public. I feel that it's important for us to be keyed into this process at this stage. And also just, to know at what stage in the timeline the office is at. This committee doesn't necessarily meet every month, and there is a full 30 days between the presentation of this document and the response. So I think it's important to us to know when that 30 days is triggered, and to know where the audit is. So that's why I asked the auditor to, add this to the process, and bring it up for discussion in this meeting. We're reanalyzing this document in this process, and I felt like this was a good time to bring this up.
Personally, I did not even key into this. This was not a red hot item for me. I do think that the manager's office should be a part of this process. I just suggested that as a committee, we also get that information and still wait from response. To Commissioner Edwards, I think for me, when we have committee meetings, this is where you work it out. Things pop up, things change, and new ideas. I think this is the place where we work things out and discuss. So it's not a waste of time if we can come to an agreement. But I just would like to get a copy of the report personally. So and then wait to hear from the manager's office with responses. So I'm sorry that it seems a little belaboring, but some new ideas pop up after discussions. That's just how life is.
Well, and along those lines, Commissioner Thornton did call me today and this afternoon, and we talked briefly about this. And I assume that whatever you do here would be consistent with the constitutional officer's process as well. And I guess the one thing that I thought about was, when a report is issued, even in draft form, it becomes public record, and you don't have the benefit of the response. And I'm trying to think about the sheriff. That was that there were some concerns, I think, from the sheriff's office about certain things, and just being able to present sort of the balanced view. Well, here's what was found, and here are the responses to that. That would be one consideration after reflecting on it a little bit longer.
Document is clearly labeled draft, and let everyone, make sure that it's clearly labeled that this is preliminary, and response has not been presented, and that it's not an official document. It will not have been voted on by any committee or the general body. I just think it's really important that this committee be keyed in at some point in the middle of the process and at least be made aware that the document has moved beyond the auditor's office to the department and the manager.
And my first conversation with Commissioner Williams, I think last week, I focused in on accountability. Who was going to be responsible? That was my main thing. It didn't matter who it was, but we do need, as a committee and a commission, to make sure we have the responsible person. And I think sometimes we lose sight of that. I have no problem. I think the concern was the responses was just coming from the department heads and not the manager's office. But adding those together is, I think, it's due diligence. It's responsible, and we know who ultimately is accountable at the end of the day. I just wanted the report for myself, for my records on the front end. So, and I would request that if this didn't pass the way it was written.
I have a question, Melissa.
Yeah.
I'm with Ed, with Russell a little bit here. I had questions for what came in yesterday's packet, and I get it. It sounds like that more work since the packet went out yesterday and today has been underway. If we can go to the original yellow dot, yellowed area in the middle, before, was it that the department had 30 days, and when the department put their information in it, then the manager got 30 days, and we're making it to where the department and the manager shares one 30-day time bracket? Is that the change that we're asking for? That was why it's back in committee?
No, the reason it was back in committee because it wasn't clear that the manager's office and the department got that draft report. So simply by adding, / manager's response, it makes it clear that the manager is keyed in to the response along with the department.
Okay. And just as an example that's currently in our wings, the Water Business Office report is currently in that yellow box that you're talking about right there.
No, the Water Business report is done.
I haven't seen a copy of it that had the manager's response folded in.
Well, I can help with that.
And that was one of the concerns that the manager, I think, wants to readdress. If I'm right, County Manager Williams.
Yes. Yes. And I think I laid out all of this in the email to y'all about those concerns. And in the case of the Water Business Office, and we were aware of the draft at all times. I've never insinuated that we didn't know about it. According to the 2018 process, there's a verification for errors and data, and then the final draft submitted to the manager for response, and then we're given 30 days. In this case, it was all sort of folded in together, and we didn't want to make an issue about extending this another 30 days with our response. We reviewed the response the department had, and that was all done at one time. And at that time, we asked, could we please clarify the process going forward, because we were confused. And I appreciate the auditor bringing forth the flow chart to explain how this works. So to answer your question, Commissioner Wright, we were fine. Well, I'll say we didn't take issue other than just the procedural way that unfolded. I'm not asking for another 30 days for response. I stand by what the department submitted through Josh, Assistant Manager Edwards, and so we're good on that. I just, I want to make sure that we're clear on process going forward, and that we would have a formal response, and I would ask this while we're at this stage in the Water Business Office, that if we're going to assume that the department's response is the manager's response, that it's labeled as such as well.
Right. Okay, so just to put it in another example, if y'all just bear with me, this is a division within public utilities. So this is a kind of what I would call a small audit compared to leisure services for the sheriff's department. And do we have it built in here when the report is a mammoth report that there's more time? Do you see that we could have that flexibility as a committee? Because I do.
What kind of flexibility are you talking about? We're just talking about a process that would, unless I'm wrong, we were just talking about a process that all the audits would go through, and to make sure that the county manager was part of that discussion in the response that comes. So I don't think the size of the audit matters. Or am I missing something?
Well, so the previous way, the department had 30 days and then the manager had 30 days. And if it's a very large document to review and put your, what is it? There's the findings that Stephanie and her crew do, and then recommendations, and then feedback. I just think as a committee, this flow chart would allow us, if something was a huge document like the sheriff's office, that there might be more time. And I think I recall that the sheriff did ask for more time, and we granted that for that turnaround. Does that make more sense, Avita?
It makes sense, and I think that we have to have something on paper. And if we get into a situation that more time is needed, I would think that whoever is requesting it we would be flexible enough to grant that time by request. I just think this is the basic, black and white, 30 days. And if there's more time that's needed, that we would be flexible to make that happen.
Gotcha. And I think that, can we go to the picture that shows the new document that we just now saw tonight? The one with the 2 yellow boxes. So I think with this checkpoint that we're talking about, where if you could scroll it up a little bit, my little command center is on top of the box. There you go. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. A little bigger?
No, that's fine. That it seems to me, if we got the draft at the same time, that then we would also know that it might be a larger document and more time. It's a checkpoint that I think is good because it gives us a reality of how big the report is.
I agree. That's part of why I was in support of this checkpoint, because it does give this committee some kind of inside knowledge of the task that the department faces in responding to the document.
Right. And Melissa, remember too how hard it was to read the whole document. So that's a point to where it gives us a heads up to start reading it so that we're ready when the other part comes. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I like that idea, because if it's a big document or small, it will give us heads up. That's all I was trying to do.
Okay, so do we believe that this, and Patrick, I don't want to speak over you or Russell, so that I'm getting my head around it. Do we think that this can go back to the full mayor and commission and be more understandable? I do like the yellow boxes because it does highlight what we're talking about. I think that was confusing before.
Does anybody want to pose a motion that we send this document forward to the mayor and commission for approval, and that we
so move.
Anyone want a second? Am I allowed to second?
I'm about to second it too.
I was just trying not to overtalk. And then just to be clear, the same version, the same thing will be done for the elected and constitutional officers. Okay. I second the motion.
There it is right there, Commissioner Wright.
And if you'll send that to us when the meeting's over so we know what we voted on, please.
Yes, ma'am. I sure will.
And Stephanie, leave the highlights in whatever documents you send to us, as well as the full commission, so it's crystal clear which box we're talking about.
I agree, Melissa, that helps.
Okay, I'll pull the 2 old ones out and leave the 2 updated ones in.
Yeah, and there should be 2 yellow boxes on each one.
Well, with the elected officials, there's just 1.
No, Stephanie, I think there is 2.
Yeah, we're requesting that the process be the same for both.
Well, with the elected officials, it's different from the manager's office, because with the manager's office, he wanted an opportunity to respond.
I'm looking at it right now, Stephanie.
Uh-oh. Mm-hmm.
See the 2 yellow boxes? Now I'm not looking at it.
No, that's correct. The 2 yellow boxes for the departments under the manager's office.
Yeah, and it just reads differently for the elected constitution.
Oh, yeah, I see.
Manager.
I don't know, Blaine, you don't respond to the elected officials normally, do you?
No.
Okay. So that would be this box right here, and I didn't highlight that one.
Yeah.
So it's just 1 on the elected officials, Commissioner Wright.
Okay, I'm following it now. Thanks for clarifying.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So somebody proposed a motion. Who seconded?
Allison.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. All right. Get that out of the way. What is next on the agenda? Let me see. Okay, so the Water Business Office report has been submitted. It'll be on our agenda setting meeting next week. We'll vote on it June 2nd. So that will be off the table. Is there any more information we need to know about that at all, Stephanie?
Well, just really, really quickly, I had a conversation with Public Utilities about the best way to deploy the information, especially for individuals who aren't able to read the document in advance. And I thought that maybe I would give a 2.5-minute presentation of high level, the findings and recommendations, and then have the presentation of the table separate. So if there were any questions about implementation plan or recommendations for the department, I invited either Glenn or Frank to be a part of the call, just in case there were questions for them. I think sometimes there's some confusion about what are we approving, and so there are a couple of things. The report is actually being accepted by the clerk on the record, but sometimes there are items in the document that you've expressed in the past you wanted to discuss collectively. And so I wanted to give a 2.5-minute overview and then allow the department to share or add information if there were questions, and that's all.
I think that's a really good idea. Because the rest of the commission, needs to approve this document. And granted, this one isn't a huge report like the sheriff's office was, but I think it would be helpful to have that summary document.
Well, I respectfully would like the manager to be able to respond to that, the department director's answer to me. And typically in the past, when we've had an audit, I believe there's been a work session where it's been discussed, and I'm fine with this, but as far as this particular audit, again, I think the manager should be held accountable and be able to respond to this.
Well, it's apparent that, the recommendations of the audit, many of them are already underway. We had a work session last night discussing some of the stuff that was brought up.
Well, again, so, and I'll repeat what I've discussed with the audit committee individually, that, again, having the department directors, there for clarification, we do that in work sessions, and that's fine. The direction to them to do things or not do things does come through the manager's office per the chart.
So, do we want to offer an opportunity to the rest of the commission to have access to some summary document, or can the summary document just be submitted with this agenda item?
We can do that. That's just fine. Mm-hmm.
Because that's what I'm getting at. Instead of asking the commission to pour through the entire document, having a summary document that maybe has references to page numbers within the actual report, if anybody wants more in-depth information, even a PowerPoint summary document that I think would help give the rest of the commission an easier time digesting, the key findings and the key recommendations.
Okay, all right.
So does anybody?
I think the agenda report needs to include the complete water business office report with the manager stuff folded in.
Yeah, certainly.
And that we're talking the same thing. And then,
yes, ma'am.
And then I guess I've gotten lost on what step, because if we just approve this flow chart, we're at the audit committee recommends a full report to the full mayor and commission for discussion. We're down at that bottom right corner. So now what are you saying that's different than that? Or did I misunderstand?
We recommend, no, we're just saying, with this agenda item, there be a summary alongside the full report. I mean, with this particular one, the full report is being recommended for discussion and acceptance. But I'm just thinking, out of courtesy to the rest of the commission who may not be up for reading the entire document, we could ask the auditor to present a summary document, which we've had with other reports and studies and stuff that have been presented to us.
Is that not what's on page 3 of the draft agenda report? Is that not what we're talking about?
Possibly is. Let me see.
Is that not what that, isn't that what that is?
Yes, that is.
So that's what it is.
So it's in the
It does
agenda
not
report.
include the department's response, though.
Okay. Do we want to?
It's in the report.
That is in the report. You're correct. Mm-hmm.
Do we want to include the department response in that agenda report?
It makes sense to me.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I think we should.
Yeah, I think so too.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I mean. Well, I believe we voted last week at our last meeting to forward this, didn't we? We voted our last meeting to forward this. I'm going to go back to the minutes. I can't remember. Yeah, we voted. Commissioner Edwards recommends. Commissioner Thornton seconded. So this audit is already moving forward, and we'll be voting on it June 2nd.
Mm-hmm.
So we're good to go on that. And I believe our next item is to determine our next meeting date. And I really want to establish a monthly meeting that allows us to vote on items in time to get them into the most upcoming agenda cycle. So I'm going to propose that we stick to a second Wednesday of the month meeting. So June 10th. Anybody? Excuse me. Anybody have any objections?
For sure.
Me.
And I'm gonna say, is 5:15 okay rather than 5:30? Does anybody have any objections to that time?
Well, due to the traffic that I don't have to go through. Anyway, no, it's all good. It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, sure. Let's go.
I work right up till 5, and I probably will be back in the office next month.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Well, Chair, if I might,
What's up?
just before we left the public utilities, so just because we talked about process a great deal, and sometimes you look back at something that happened as precedent. The current water business office audit is not worded, according to the current approved process, nor the recommended process where the, the department is the responding entity. I don't want to make too much about that, but I'm just going on record on this because it's all recorded. That's not the precedent. The clear process we're following is the one adopted by the mayor and commission in the past, and now in the future, whatever y'all adopt is what we follow. And I just wanted to go on record saying that, because it never came up that, well, this particular audit's worded this way, so that could have happened in the past. But we're going by the flow chart. That's what we should be following. So I just want to say that. Thank you.
Okay.
It's confusing, and I think the more that we all can share the different aspects of it, the better. And that's going to make us look like we know what we're doing as a committee when it goes to the full mayor and commission too. I feel like, yeah. So
it's probably a good idea if we all keep this document at the top of our stack and refer to it regularly.
The flow chart?
Yeah.
That we haven't gotten yet? Yeah. Send that to us and I'll put it in my folder. And we're looking for that being on so we'll have 2 audit committee things in the next agenda.
Yes, correct, Stephanie?
So the acceptance of the Water Business Office audit, the acceptance of the flow chart, the revised updated flow chart, and there is a third one, I thought. Was there a risk assessment or no?
Yeah, the risk assessment.
So there are 3, and I think they're all ready. I just have to update them.
And just for clarification, and help me out, Melissa, we're accepting the report from the Water Business Office. We're approving the flow chart, and we're asking for approval on the risk assessment.
We're asking for approval for deployment of the risk assessment.
So there's 2 approvals and 1 acceptance. We're just accepting the report. We're not approving the right?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that
yes, ma'am.
Yep.
Can I make a motion? We adjourn?
Does anybody else have anything else they want to bring up?
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Good
Thanks,
night.
guys. Y'all have a good night.
See y'all.
Thank you. Bye.